Good afternoon. Happy Savage Saturday, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here. And guys, today we're going to do something a little bit different with Savage Saturday Comic Review. We're not going to review anything barbaric today, just in violence. And we are going to go with a horror title called Fright, Son of Dracula, which lasted one issue, was only one issue, with incredible cover art by Frank Thorne and interior art. And Frank Thorne was enjoying this so much, but he did 3 drafts of this cover before he got it the way he wanted it. And I think you would agree that the results in this cover are absolutely fantastic. And as you'll see once we get into the review, the interior art is incredible. Frank Thorne was just a really amazing talent in his time, and the things he created were absolutely incredible. But let's get into a little about the publisher, Atlas Seaboard Comics. Now, first of all, why is it called Atlas Seaboard? And that was called that by most people in the comics industry because there was an Atlas Comics in the 1950s. So to distinguish the 2 different types of publishers, you had the Atlas Comics, which was for the 1950s, and Atlas Seaboard, which was for the 1974 founding company. Now, the Seaboard is for Seaboard periodicals, started by Martin Goodman, who used to work at Marvel, left there in 1972, created the Seaboard periodicals in the Atlas Comics line, which launched in 1974. Now, they were supposed to be in direct competition with Marvel and DC, and he was able to coax a bunch of great names over there, with like heavyweights like Neil Adams, Steve Ditko, Ross Heath, John Severin, Alex Toth, Wally Wood, Frank Thorne, Howard Chaykin, Rich Buckler, just a whole bunch of talented people. And the way he did that is Atlas Seaboard was one of the first companies to offer the creators their art back and the rights to any characters that they themselves created. So a little bit of pioneers in that kind of thing back in the day, which wasn't very prevalent. So they had some good foundations going for them. Definitely mismanaged a little bit though. They did court Stanley's brother, Larry Lieber, over as an editor who was supposed to at first edit the black and white magazines, but someone left and he ended up editing the color comics instead. He also did some art for a bunch of them, was just an everyman for that company. They did try to court Roy Thomas, but he didn't see that company lasting because of how volatile the field of comics was at the time. So he stayed with the sure thing, which was his job at Marvel, and that obviously worked out for Roy Thomas. And unfortunately, Atlas Seaboard Comics folded in 1975. They were dissolved. And they only put out 23 comics in that time. Five comic magazines, 23 comics. And they were published between 1974 and 1975, and none of them lasted over 4 issues. Some were only 1, some were 2, some were 3, and a couple were 4. And you had titles like Devilina, Barbarians, Blazing Battle Tales, The Brute, The Cougar, The Destructor, Fright, The Grim Ghost, Ironjaw, Phoenix, Planet of the Vampires, Tiger Man, and Wolf the Barbarian. A couple, I'd say about 7 or 8 of these I have complete, which is really nice. I really enjoy the Atlas Comics line. Now, with Atlas Comics, the titles were hit or miss with quality, right? Just like any company. You have some titles that are great, some titles that are middle of the road, and other titles that just aren't hitting the way they should and suffer from a lack of either writing or art or both in quality. But enough about Atlas Seaboard. Let's get into this. Fright, Son of Dracula. And you know how I do it. I'll keep putting stuff over there. And this, look, I was already intrigued by this because I am a huge Frank Thorne fan. From his work on Red Sonja, Gita of Alazar, and just the random things he pops up on. Frank's effort is always A+. He put his heart and his soul into what he did, and it always showed and it always turned up on the page. And again, I know I'm showing you the cover over here. The cover is amazing. The fact that Frank wasn't happy with his first and second draft and kept going until he got a cover he was satisfied with speaks a lot to his character. And so as we open, there's this woman who is tied to a stake. She's about to be burned as a witch by these people in this little hamlet in Transylvania. And they're starting to fire, and this bat swoops down out of the air and then transforms into Dracula himself. And he is looking to save this woman, but not out of anything heroic, for his own ends and means. He wants her. He wants to feed on her. And I should mention, I did say Frank Thorne art. This is written by Gary Friedrich. So, and it's a great story. Gary Friedrich did a great job on it. Gotta love those Garys, right? Solid people. And then you can see the first page over here, but I'm going to show it to you again. And unto Dracula was born a son. Just great stuff. And so as we turn the page, Dracula swoops down and he scares the villagers away just by being who he is alone. And he takes this woman with him. He turns back into a giant bat and he carries her to his castle. And once there, he gets her in the master bedroom and he's about to feed on her when he sees a mark on her left breast. And that is the mark of his family. He's like, no, the mark upon your breast, could it be? It seems impossible, and yet it must be true. It is the mark of my family. You are my only living relative. And as she's sleeping, the Count finds out that she is his fourth cousin. And he is about to turn her, and after he's talking to her, and he's trying to mind control her, but because she's a direct relation to him, the mind control powers don't work. So he can't hypnotize her. He can't subvert her free will. All right, so we get a couple great pages there. And again, I'll be showing all this. So like a 32-page comic, 18 pages. I think nowadays there's 16 of story. We get 18 pages of story in this. And as he turns, she begs him not to bite her, not to turn her. And she says, no, don't, I beg of you. There's something even more important I can give you in all of the house of Dracula. And he says, what could be more important than to have you join me? And she tells him that she can give him a son born of pure Dracul blood. And he won't be alone. And all he has to do is promise not to turn her. So she gives herself to Dracula. He mates with his fourth cousin. And she ends up having his son. And as I'm talking, I'm going to have to take little sips here. It says, and so it came to pass 9 months later. And she says, now I have fulfilled my end of our bargain. Look upon your offspring, a healthy boy child. And she goes, but as soon as I'm able, you'll not see him again. He must never become one of your kind. Her motherly instincts have taken over. And now she's thinking more about the kid than herself, of saving herself. She does not want her son to grow up and be a vicious, cruel killer like Dracula. And so she promises to take the kid away and he'll never see him. And Dracula is enraged. He's like, silence, woman. Let me gaze upon my child. I can hardly believe it. My own son. And she goes, your son, yes, but yours to raise, never. Stay away from him, or I swear I'll smother him here within the blankets on which he was born. And Dracula's like, you dare defy me? And he bites her. And just in a quick violent act, he overcomes her and just latches right into her. So as we get to the next scene, Dracula's sleeping in his coffin in the dirt from his homeland, the soil from his homeland, and she is there with the son. She's like, you have underestimated me, Dracula. Though I am weary from your bite, my will yet remains my own. Now before sunset tonight, I must arrange that my child be free from Dracula forever. And so, while he's asleep, she sets off. Now, she doesn't murder him, but she does leave. And it says, fate is kind, and the young mother bids a last farewell to her son. She finds this woman. She goes, remember, until the boy is much older, he must always wear this charm around his neck. For should anything happen to this charm, the boy might die. And so, this little village woman sets off, her and her husband, with this child, which is a gift to them from the woman. The son of Dracula's mother. And Dracula finally catches up to her. He goes, I've been looking for you, my dear. How glad I am to have found you at last. Come, let me taste that which I so desperately crave. And he gives her another blood-draining kiss where he is just feeding off her and he's going to turn her into a vampire. She's like, no, never. Just as I will never serve you, neither will he. Because he won't tell her she won't tell Dracula where his son is. And she runs forward and impales herself on some spikes that are on the dock there. And he can't believe that he's been cheated. He's been cheated of his son. He's been cheated of this woman he wanted to turn into a vampire and make his lifelong mate for however long a Dracula lives, for infinity. And the last panels end with the young Dracula's son, who's grown into a fine young lad, and 7 years later in a town in Appalachia, and he asks why he can never take off the necklace and why he has to sleep with a cross on his chest. And the woman is like, Lord help me, I knew it would come one day, the fateful question and the impossible answer. A couple of other great pages just full of incredible Frank Thorne art. Now the thing with this is the story is very well written. I mean, you got horror, you got blood, you got death. You have a woman trying to save her child at the expense of her own life. You have the horror, like it was an incestuous mating to begin with. And then you have this village family that's just trying to care for a child when they couldn't have one themselves. And you got a lot going on. It's well written, it's well paced. So we turn the page, and Dracula has found them. He's like, perhaps I can satisfy your curiosity, boy. You see, I am a relative, and I know all there is to know about you. But the woman's defying Dracula. She says, I'll keep you from him forever, godless demon of the devil. There's none of you in him. I can promise you that. Now get out and never come back. And she brandishes a cross against Dracula. He goes, the cross, the accursed cross, take it away. I will do your bidding. And Dracula leaves, but he says, I will be back. He goes, and I will have you, and I will have the boy, and I will turn you. And so he promises to reclaim his son and to drain her of her very life's blood and turn her into one of his servants. So after Dracula leaves, she can only do one thing, and it's kind of horrific. She goes, and the son's asking, but where are we going, Mother? It's almost bedtime. She's like, hurry, Adam. And I'm sorry, that's the kid's name, Adam. She goes, don't ask questions, just hold your cross and do as I say. Now keep watch for that stranger while I open the wine cellar door and light the lamp. And while they're down in the cellar, she lays him down to sleep. She goes, well, stay here tonight. Just hold on to your cross, and if I should be gone when you wake up, I want you to read this book I'm leaving. It'll help you understand all. So she kisses him, and moments later, outside it says, the cross will keep him alive. Now I only need to seal him in. No matter what happens to me, at least he'll be safe from Dracula. So a couple more pages. The story is advancing. She's about to seal the boy in there for quite a while, so Dracula cannot find him. And she has a powder keg, and she lights it, blows it up. She's dead, and he is hidden. It says, time passes. Until now, in the year 1975, a young college professor named Adam Lucard, which is Dracul backwards, haha, right? Very clever. Prepares to begin his teaching career on the campus of Columbia University in New York City. And he's talking to his students, says, this course is called The Occult, Fact or Fiction. And of course, he would be drawn to the occult. And in this crowd, he's got a young woman that's really attracted to him, one of the students. And she goes, what do you think, Professor Lucard? Do you believe in witchcraft and that kind of stuff? I mean, what's that thing around your neck? He goes, well, let's just say it isn't a violet pea soup left over from The Exorcist. And then after class, she's still trying to engage him in talking. He's like, thank you, Miss Porter. I hope you can, I can do your justice to your enthusiasm. And he departs, and she says, I'll see you tomorrow, Professor. And he's like, good evening. But you can see the stress on his face. And a great rendering of him from Frank Thorne, because you can see that he's distressed. He's like, night again approaches, and he knows he's got to get in his abode. He's got to get the cross on him, and he's got to sleep. So it is vital that I return to my rooms by sunset. No matter how secure I feel with the protection in my briefcase, it's always possible that the curse will overtake me before I have time to stop it. Now, he doesn't know what the curse will do. He's never had to experience it, but he does not want to find out. So he has his cross out, and he's about ready to prepare for sleep. And when he does, he is safe in his room and talking to himself about how he must obey the rituals. He must obey what the book says and avoid his father's curse. He goes, during the light of day, I must protect myself by wearing a vial of native soil about my neck, and at night, the golden cross prevents me from becoming my father's son. My mother was right. I must always heed her deathbed warning. And it has a little flashback of him talking to his mother. And then it says, as Adam dreams, the young woman that's infatuated with Adam actually steals into his apartment. And while he's there sleeping, she's like, look at all this weird stuff. He is into the weird and the occult and the witchcraft, just like I am. And she's like, but there he is, my sleeping prince. But what's with the cross? She goes, I'll wake him with a kiss, but this cross makes me nervous. I'll just put it. And as she removes the cross, he instantly changes into a vampire, into another Dracula. She screams, but it is much too late for her because this bloodlust that has been denied his whole life is now upon him, and he drains her on the spot and leaves her dead on the floor. And he turns into a bat, and he's like, I will stalk my victim in a more convenient form. He goes, sweet nectar, at long last, I live again. He goes, but like fine wine, one sip is not enough. I must have more. Surely in so large a city as this, yet another portion cannot be hard to find. And he turns into the form of a bat, and in a few minutes, he actually finds the girl's friend that's looking for her. And he lands and murders her on the spot, drains her. So it's getting quite horrific. And I like that. It's a comic and they don't pull the punches, right? He's a Dracula, he's a vampire, he kills. Alright, so he leaves her dead there, and then the police are arriving on the scene, and he retreats in the form of his bat. And they can't make sense of it. They see the holes on the neck, and they're asking if this is something that could be real. And then it says 20 minutes later, and they're still at the murder scene. They're like, it's a homicide, all right, but it's hard to figure the motive. Her purse wasn't stolen, and all the money's still in there. This is a far-out suggestion, but looking at them punctures in her neck, and seeing as there's no blood, maybe there's a vampire loose in the 19th precinct. And he's like, don't let the news guys get wind of that notion, or we'll have panic on our hands. And then we switch back to his apartment where he's waking up, and he's like, oh, my head. If I didn't know better, I'd swear I tied one on last night. And he has no recollection of being out as a Dracula. And I was like, the cross, where is it? He's like, oh my God, it's gone. And the shirt is soaked with blood. He goes, what could have happened? He goes, why can't I remember? Could I have the curse? And then when he gets out of bed, he sees the young woman that he killed in his apartment dead on the floor next to him. He goes, heaven forgive me, it's finally happened. I can't remember, but I must have done this. He goes, but how? What happened to my protective cross? Did somebody remove it? Or did the blood of my father finally overcome the cross's power? If it did, then I am a hopeless vampire. And just some more great drawings by Frank Thorne. Great story leads one panel to the next, and you get the horrific look on his face as he realizes that he's murdered somebody. And then our last page shows him making a stake, and he drives it through the young woman's heart. He goes, forgive me, but this must be done. I must drive a wooden stake through your heart to save your soul. He goes, it is done, but will this be the last time, or is it just the beginning? If only I knew the answer, then perhaps I know what to do, whether I should go on living. And it ends in a panel with him praying, Lord, hear my prayer, help me to make right the decision. Shall I destroy myself or rid the world of the menace I pose? Will this happen again? Should I continue to live, to work, to teach? Only you can answer me. Until then, I pray for all mankind. And then it says the end or the beginning. And it leaves us with that. So, a great little story. Now, I enjoyed this way more than I thought. I'm more of a werewolf person than a vampire person. But this story was an A++ for me all day. I've read it a couple times through now since I've had it. I really, really enjoy it. Having Frank Thorne as an artist is just icing on the cake, and it makes it all the more enjoyable. So I'm going to give, like I said, this story's an A++. The art is an A++. Great pacing, great conclusion. Leaves it open if they were going to create more stories, which they obviously didn't, but it is what it is. It's still great as a one-off story. Nothing about this I didn't enjoy. So if you guys get a chance and you find a copy of this, I'd pick it up and enjoy it. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's Savage Saturday Comic Review. And until next time, Keep it casual. Attention all, use channel sponsor Rogue Trader at theroguetraderutah.com and my code KEEPITCASUAL for 10% off your comic cleaning and pressing needs. Remember, when submitting your books to be graded, use a trusted professional.